Welcome to the Reddit Rainforest. Don't forget to grab your hat, rope and boots. We are heading into the forest for some loot. Today, what's the coolest, scariest, or most ducked up dream you have ever had? Dreaming that my wife and I were running away from our house due to a huge bushfire/wildfire bearing down on us. I realized that we'd left behind our 1-year-old baby in the house, so turned to go back for him. My wife shouts out to just leave him, and he'll be fine. Thankfully I woke up before I found out the ending to that cheery story. I had one fully narrated by Johnny Cash. Favorite dream of all time. I wake up in the dream and sit up in my bed, in a room, filled with a bunch of other friends and family who are also all sitting up in their beds. We're talking, and chatting, and laughing, and eating little snacks. And all the beds are on wheels so everyone can move around however they want. It was like a big bed party. When I was like 8 years old I had a nightmare with a human-faced bear pawing at the window of my bedroom from the outside. The room was on the 2nd floor by the way. When I was young I had a reoccurring dream of a wolf head looking in at my 2nd story window. Had reoccurring dreams for years of a wolf in my room. Head hide under my desk, bed, in the closet, wherever just to get to me. Was an upright walking one. Scared the malarkey out of me. My recurring dream of my teeth crumbling and falling out always freaks me the F out. I have had those since childhood. All my teeth feel extremely loose in their sockets. And I know that I could pull them out by hand with the slightest grasp. I say to myself that, if only I do not touch them, that my teeth will be okay. But I cannot help it. And I pull them from my mouth. I get this as well. I'm literally spitting out mouthfuls of teeth into the sink. No pain. And only a little blood. But more teeth than I could actually have getting spat out. I always waking up feeling so ridiculously uncomfortable. I was getting a rat out of a wall void in a Lazy Susan. I was looking around in the Lazy Susan for any other signs of rats. My light shone upon a large, furry object. I traced my light up to its face and turns out, it was a heavily emaciated cat. That cat's face said I want to kill your soul, while it slowly got out of the Lazy Susan. It kept glaring at me as it slowly got out. I woke up and had some anxiety. I was sweating lol. I had a dream in 3rd person and whacked myself, slit my wrist and I just stood there whacking the blood pour out. And when it stopped I just looked down at all the blood and said well that did not work and walked away. So that was ducking with me for the day. Edit. It happened a few days ago and thinking about still ducks with me. I had more dream of me doing stuff that should have killed me and didn't, like toaster in the bath and shotgun to the face, even one of my petting my cat's tummy and it slit my wrist with its claws, and my cat loves having its tummy rubbed. Here's a pretty freaky dream I had a while ago. I was in this room. Bare, hardwood floors, a small bed with no sheets or blankets on it, and rabbits. Huge white rabbits all over the place. They would look up at me with their creepy pink eyes and hiss. They were also doing these long, slow motion jumps and would look at me and hiss while in midair. I wanted to leave, but I was not allowed to let any of the rabbits out, and every time I went for the door they would swarm towards it. Oh boy, this question again. Some of you may have heard me tell this one before, and I freely admit to plagiarizing myself. But here goes. Trigger warnings for claustrophobia. I was in a laboratory staring at these things that kinda resembled MRI machines combined with decompression chambers. There was a porthole that looked into a plastic tube, and the apparatus was built into a sort of cube that was stacked up against a wall. Sounds mundane, right? But they were not about scanning your body for disease or decompressing you. No, they were torture chambers. Impossibly cruel torture chambers. See, what they'd do is load you into one of these tubes, and like an MRI you could not move at all. There was no space to stretch, or raise your arms over your head or bend your knees, or do anything at all. It was basically a coffin. And that's where the torture came in. Once loaded into this confined space, the machine would inject this metallic substance into your veins that would keep you alive no matter what. You had no air to breathe, no water to drink, no food to eat. But while you were locked in that prison, the intravenous feed into your veins would keep you not just alive, but alert, awake, fully aware of your surroundings, and they'd keep you in there until you inevitably went insane. But that was just the beginning. Once you had lost your mind trapped in that tube, they'd keep you there, even buried the thing underground for good measure, for months, years, however long it took until your brain was completely wiped clean of whatever you used to be. Then after a few more months, just to be sure, they'd dig you up, take you out of the chamber, and begin to rehabilitate you, to re-educate you, to turn you into whatever they wanted you to be. When I was standing in that lab, Staring at those chambers, I realized that I'd been in one of them before. My mind would not let me remember the horror of the experience being buried alive for years on end, but I knew that it'd been in there. I knew that what I once was wiped out by months of insanity and years of isolation. I stared at that porthole looking into the empty chamber, knowing that it'd been tortured so completely that my mind would not let me remember. But I knew. Somehow I knew. I had a dream that it was my childhood in the early 80s again, and that drive. Teeth from the Muppet Show band had held a press conference to announce that he was the first celebrity that had AIDS. Luigi gave birth to Freddie Mercury. Dreamt I was about to eat the best sandwich ever. Vaguely remember waking up and taking out my night guard to bite into that juicy, delicious sandwich, only to realize in the morning there was no sandwich. And now my jaw hurts from taking my night guard out. I do not know how this classifies into it, but here we go. It starts out with me taking a hit from my bong, and after only 3 hits I'm the highest I have ever been. About 30 minutes into the session, a amorphous glob of tentacles and eyes that I apparently call a friend in this dream phases through my wall and takes a hit from the bong. After talking philosophy for 2 hours, I then proceed to eat, jack off, and fall asleep before waking up in real life. I have no ducking idea what this dream was or why/how I made friends with a blob of eyes and tentacles, but it was easily the most vivid dream I have ever had. I had several dreams when I was a kid that my older brother was trying to murder me. Each time he used a different method and they got more and more convoluted. I was like ATO. Scariest. I woke up in a cage, surrounded by other people in cages, and then the lights turned on and everyone else started to stretch and twist and become deformed and started screeching. My dreams mean so much to me. Right before I married my husband I had the loveliest dream where we were in a little mud hut together, having a really lovely cuddle. It was pouring with rain. The mud hut was at the end of a really long rice field at the bottom of a cliff. It rained so much that it began to flood, but we were not scared. We just stayed there holding each other and feeling really peaceful. Soon the water came up over our faces, but we did not drown. We just became the water. Then the water fed the rice crops and we became the rice. I woke up with the most peaceful feeling. Looked at my husband and just knew it was absolute pure love and I would feel safe forever as long as I was with him. I almost never have nightmares, but when I do, they're always physical dreams. Like, if a vivid dream is an accurate experience of your visual sense, a physical dream is an accurate experience of your vestibular sense, equilibrioception, and your kinesthetic sense, proprioception, and is usually also vivid. As far as I understand it, a lucid dream is usually vivid or physical or both. So basically what I'm calling a physical dream is the same as an exceptionally lucid dream, except without actually being aware that you're dreaming. I never break through into awareness during a physical dream, even when it's not a nightmare. And when the physical dream is a nightmare, it's never about fear or any other emotion. It's just pain. The worst one in terms of pain was the first one. I was standing in a room, and then my body went stiffly rigid and I rose about a foot off the floor. My head stayed where it was in space, maybe 7-ish feet off the ground, and pointed forwards and upright. Now, maintaining its normal spatial orientation. But the rest of my body slowly curled up backwards until my feet were in front of my face. I could feel my back being unnaturally bent. Then I turned around. By that point I knew with dream logic that my body had been possessed by a demon. And then I floated out the door, then turned and floated towards another door. And then I woke up. I could physically feel my body being contorted the whole time. And it effing hurt. But the whole thing probably lasted less than 90 seconds. I had another nightmare a few months later. I was standing in front of a door, and it started to open, and I knew with dream logic that some sort of malevolent entity was on the other side. So I grabbed the door knob with both hands, and squeezed/gripped as hard as I could, and pulled backwards as hard as I could. And I was fighting to keep it shut, and it kept pulling open just a little bit, and I had to keep pulling backwards like playing tug of war with the door. And I could feel my forearms just burning with strain. It probably only lasted less than a minute. I went a while without having another nightmare, and this one was comparatively mild. I was sitting in the backseat of a car that was driving through a graveyard that was very large with lots of hills. And then I felt myself being pulled down through seat and floor of the car into the ground. I knew with dream logic that it was the dead people trying to drag me down to hell. It was really short. The thing that makes me classify these things as nightmares and not the content. It's the physical sensation. There's not even an emotional response. These things never make me feel afraid. It's just physical pain and then waking up soaked in adrenaline. I had another one over a year ago. Probably last January. Anyways, I dreamt that I was lying in bed in my bedroom from the house that I lived in from ages 3 to 19. My eyes were closed, but I knew where I was. I felt a presence. There was a door to the outside next to the window, which dream logic just accepted as normal because brains are stupid globs of jelly flesh. The door opened. I knew with dream logic that whatever had opened the door intended to kill me. I kept my eyes closed and immediately started believing that it was my younger brother because sneaking in through my door was a thing he would do sometimes, so my parents were old not to catch him, which is absolutely false and has zero basis in reality. But I was intentionally believing it because I knew that the entity could hear my thoughts and would attack immediately if it knew that I knew it was there. Think HPMOR's description of an occlumency barrier or the thing Mrs. Coulter does near the end of the amber spyglass. I laid there with my eyes closed believing that it was my younger brother, while the entity walked over to the side of my bed. I jerked up and swung to the left to try to start hitting / pushing / fighting the entity. The dream ended probably literally less than 2 seconds later, but in that brief window of time, I vividly saw a full-on skeleton with glowing eyes and sharp teeth, and it started biting my hands and my forearms, and I could physically feel the teeth penetrating my flesh. I woke up and I could feel the adrenaline soaking into my muscles, especially in the forearm area. I just so happened to be facing left with my arms outstretched, in almost the exact same position I had been in during the biting. I got up to pee, then looked at the clock, and it was like 4:30 am. I'd only been asleep for like 4 or 5 hours. But IDK if you have ever tried to go sleep immediately after a surge of adrenaline but it just does not work, so I just stayed up. I do not care to describe the last one I had a few months ago. I have vivid dreams several of times a week. Sometimes 3 or 4 times in a single night and always at least twice a week, if not 3 or 4 times a week. And once every 3 to 5 weeks I'll have a physical dream where I can feel my body, and the content of those is almost always like, I have discovered a new way of jumping. Usually it's something like either jumping straight up 10 feet, then when I land I jump again immediately and it's like 20 feet straight up, and repeat that until I'm 50 plus feet in the air. Or alternatively I'll discover how to jump while running and each bound get between 10 and 30 feet vertical but go forwards like 50 feet every time I jump and it feels like flying, and those ones are just radical. The jumping is always weird and different, though usually it falls into one of those 2 broad categories of jumping high or jumping long. And I can feel my hamstrings actually doing the jumping, and I can feel the same type of sense of acceleration as if the little hairs in my inner ear were wibbling around idle. If the trade-off for that is that once every 7 to 15 months I have to experience the sensation of a demon ripping my body apart, and a genie told me he could permanently poof away the physical dream nightmares, but the rest of the dream stuff would go away too, I do not think I'd take him up on it. I like the weird jumping dreams. Oh man, I feel pain in my dreams and it sucks. During the past few weeks I have gotten dream COVID-19 several times, and in one of these dreams I got intubated but was still conscious. My chest was so tight and I could feel the tube in my throat. Not the scariest, but most ducked up dream was I was getting chased by Mr. Feeney. I thought I was safe, but I turned around and he was there. I was being surrounded by giant rubber chickens. I then woke up at 10:30 am with a really bad headache. It was today. That concludes this adventure, but do not worry, there are many more coming. Like and subscribe for more videos from the Reddit Rainforest. Thanks for watching.